You're listening to
They're gonna call it a hard foul. They're gonna call it a hard foul.
offering in-depth analysis on all things Boston Celtics with your hosts, Jim and Mike Quigley.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on when you're listening to it. Another episode of Hard Foul with your hosts, Jim Quigley and myself, Mike Quigley. Coming off a victory against the Indiana Pacers this week on the second night of a back-to-back where the Celtics, I think you could argue, didn't play their hardest defensively, gave up a lot of second-chance points, but pulled it out in the end with some terrific defensive plays made by Jason Tatum. A first half of really good execution on the offensive end, and a second half of kind of walking to the finish line, in my opinion, hoping that you're going to win the game. Jim, any initial thoughts on the Pacers game that you want to dive into that? We're going to dive into the rival. We're going to dive into the rivalry with the LA Lakers today as well.
Yeah. So it was their 15th game in 26 days, I think it was. Or do I have that right? I think so. Yeah, I think so. So the 15 games in 26 days. So it's kind of the end of the stretch. I argued with you the last time that I thought the end of the stretch was the end of their road trip, but I think you might be right. They were 11-4 over those 15 games, +9 in an average point differential. So they did more than survive a really tough stretch that was littered with a bunch of really good teams and a really tough just travel schedule and rest schedule. And like you said, second night of the back-to-back, I thought, obviously the offense looked great in that first half. They scored nearly 80 points. They scored over 80 points, actually, which is just, ridiculous. But, as you mentioned, I think they went into halftime and they had given up 22 or 24 second chance points, and that kick continued right into the third quarter, where there wasn't a commitment on both ends. Certainly not a commitment and an effort from an effort standpoint on the defensive glass. I thought the Pacers just outworked them for three quarters there. And then, you and I had gone back and forth about just the overall play of the team, and in particular, Neemias Queta, really struggling at points when he was in there. But I have to say, despite his struggles, I thought he was kind of the key that got them going in the fourth quarter from an effort standpoint. He, nearly turned the ball over and turned it into a jump ball and kind of had that goofy moment where he tipped it to himself and everyone's kind of looking like, what's going on? Well, the next possession, he gets on the floor and creates another jump ball to save an offensive possession and tips it to Jalen, who tips it right back to him, and he gets the M1. And then he gets extra opportunities for the Celtics with his work on the offensive glass. And he was working his tail off on the defensive end. And it wasn't always pretty at all. In fact, it was very sloppy. But you just saw the fight that he brought at the start that fourth quarter. And I thought, it carried over to his teammates. I thought that energized them. To get them going, and they were much better on the defensive glass for the rest of that game. They kind of walked down the lead, like you said, at the end of the game, and they were able to hold on to win. But if I'm searching for a positive from that game, it was Queta just kind of lighting a fire to get them going. And over a course of 82, you're going to need your bench guys to do that, especially when guys are out like Horford and Cornette. So kudos to him. Certainly wasn't their best night. You did a good job, during the game, and I don't know if you got in your opening or not, where they, once again didn't score 50 points in the second half at home, which has, been a trend over the last three games. But they've got through this kind of really tough stretch. I think this is some things we can look at from the team standpoint that are good, some things that are not so good. And they're, about to hit a stretch of basketball where they don't play a lot of good teams, and the schedule is kind to them in terms of rest and travel and things like that. So, there's certainly things we can nitpick, but best record in the league by more than 3 games, and they got through a stretch of a schedule which could have been a lot worse at 11-4. So, Mike, that's kind of my takeaway from the Pacers win, and I know you want to look ahead as well.
Yeah, I mean, they even increased their lead here in the Eastern Conference during this stretch. I mean, they're up 5 games now on Milwaukee. Milwaukee lost again last night on the road in Portland. So that the Celtics are in a really comfortable place standing-wise, where in February now there's an opportunity to really put some distance between themselves and everybody else, including both conferences, and now putting their eye on the prize of home court advantage, throughout the entire playoffs. So that to me should be the goal at this point. They've been so good at home this season to, stack as many wins as they can here in February, and maybe they can go on cruise control a little bit in April. But even March isn't that difficult of a schedule. So the Celtics are in a really good place. I will say, as far as how they're playing on the floor, they are winning games. These second halves are concerning to me. Well, I'm seeing old habits. Even some of the turnovers at the end of that Indiana game when the game was over. The 8-second violation on Drew Holiday, followed up by another turnover. These are things we saw last year. These are things that have shown up in the playoffs. The one thing I did like is out of a timeout where they were struggling offensively, they went right to the post to Porzingis on a mismatch, and he got up. That was a great inbound play by Missoula. But just the pace of play once again in the second half, and the lack of execution, the lack of good 3-point attempts that are open through ball movement, a lot of one pass and shooting a 3. It's just a lack of focus, really. And those are the things that they have to improve. Maybe they'll be more mentally fresh during February to get back to those good habits. But that's my focus is looking forward. And speaking of looking forward, the Lakers aren't a great team. They're playing horrible. They've lost to the Hawks recently. I think they've lost to Memphis. They only have 7 wins on the road. I think their road record is like 7-17, one of the worst road records in the NBA. And despite that, it's still a rivalry, Jim. And what are your thoughts on tonight's game? And we'll talk a little bit about the history of the Celtics-Lakers rivalry, as it's been, probably the best rivalry you could argue in all sports.
Well, you expected the Lakers to come out and give their best effort. That's what you expect, but they're in a really interesting spot. There's a clear dynamic between the best players, LeBron and Davis, and the coach, and the rest.
Yeah.
I think the rest of the players, they don't like the coach. I think that's been clear. I mean, they don't really hide it in their comments after games. We talk about Celtics effort. I think there's been a ton of times this season where you could question the Lakers' effort out on the court. They are, it seems like this is happening to them every year where they're hovering around 500 at this point of the year. Some seasons, they respond like last year, but there's been more seasons than not where they have not, and they've ended up under 500 or playing in for the playing game way too often with the talent they have. And this is, I think, a much tougher spot for them to be in than, like, even say last season, because the talent in the West is just so much better. And there's so many good teams out there that if you start digging yourself a hole, it's going to be really hard to get out of. And right now they're in a spot where I think they're the 10th seed in the West. So they'd be in the play-in game with the, battling out with Utah for that last play-in spot. So this I imagine is a really big game for them. I don't know the status of Anthony Davis. I know he didn't play against Atlanta. I think they would need him to have any shot tonight. But you could really go, this is a national TV game against your rival. For them, it could go one of two ways, right? You could show up and play really well, and maybe you can build some momentum on that. But if the Celtics bury them, they're going to be leading every, there's no football game this weekend. The Super Bowl's on a bye. They're going to be leading every national sports talk show tomorrow if the Celtics bury them. And Dobbin Ham's job is, going to be under a magnifying glass. It already is, but it's going to be that much more. You can expect some passive aggressive comments from the players and maybe even more direct. So this is a really interesting night, I think, for their season. You have your rival going in one direction, you're going in another. They already kind of beat you pretty good at home on Christmas Day. And now here you got Izara on national TV again, with not a lot else going on in the sports world. If you don't show up, I don't want to say it's this season, but it's getting close to that point, right? It really is. So I just don't know, Mike. I don't know what to expect from them. LeBron can clearly still play. He had a triple-double the other night. He's still excellent. They show that they can turn it on when they have to, like they did with the in-season tournament, but they've just been terrible since then. And it's kind of embarrassing. It gets more and more embarrassing that they put a banner up for that, especially with the way they've played since that point. So that's my evaluation. I know you wanted my expectations for tonight, but it's either their best effort. I think they're going to get their doors blown off.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, and it's interesting. You have LeBron; he's tweeting like running out of time. What does that mean? And is it possible that he's saying like you got to fire the coach, or is it him hinting at he wants to be traded? I don't know if something like that could actually happen, but you really can't count anything out in the NBA. And I'm sure a lot of teams would be interested, obviously, in seeing if there was a way they could bring him in. But that team is a mess. I mean, they were starting Jackson Hayes the other night. The guy keeps switching up his starting lineup. Nothing seems to be working. D'Angelo Russell, he can't play defense, even though he talks that he wants to play defense like Derek White. That was his quote.
Yeah.
He can't really defend anybody, and offensively, he's just average. And then even Austin Reeves, a guy who came to life in the second half last year and really was the man in the playoffs, like as a third option, as they made a run. I don't think he has a place on the team anymore. He still puts up numbers, but I don't think people know what their roles are. And that's good, because I hate the Lakers and I love to see them suffer, and I hope the Celtics blow them out tonight. That brings us into the next segment. Oh, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and I was going to say, you saw them go with that all defensive lineup against the Celtics last time, and they can definitely defend, right? With Davis and LeBron and Vanderbilt, and I forget who their guard play was but they just struggled so badly on the offensive end that the Celtics ended up getting easy shots because they were always in transition. Is Gabe Vincent even playing or getting minutes for them right now?
He's been hurt.
Still hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's another one that's backfired for them. And I mean, I think everybody could have saw that coming, if I'm going to be honest. But, I think for a little while we thought that might have been like a good pickup, but it seems like one of those players that's good in Miami and isn't going to be good anywhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they signed the other the Miami Heat point guard there a couple of years ago that never played too.
Dunn.
Yeah, his name's is Chris Dunn. Is that what it was?
Kendrick Dunn or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Nunn. Is it Nunn? Is that what it was?
Nunn. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is he even in the league?
I don't know. So yeah, and as far as this rivalry goes, obviously a great rivalry. There hasn't been a ton of big games lately over the last, since
decade.
COVID. Yeah, it got close in the bubble. So I think it's
Yeah.
lost some of that spice. I mean, LeBron brought some of it back. But yeah, obviously a tremendous rivalry. They're an easy team to hate. You know what's funny about it though, Mike? As far as teams I dislike, from a fan's perspective, I obviously dislike the Lakers, but I've always hated like Philly more. I kind of hate Miami more.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Especially recently.
yeah, there are some aspects of the Lakers that I've, begrudgingly respected over the years. So do you have questions or do you want me to ask?
Yeah, I mean,
How do you want to do this?
if you have some too,
Okay.
I wanted to start off, Jim. Like, what was the most heartbreaking moment for you in this rivalry?
Oh, that's
I
that's
know there's
tough.
been definitely some tough losses over the years. I don't
Yeah,
know if you were
yeah. So
too
I
young for
think
some of them, or
I was too young in '87. Um, although I remember it, but I was too young to have really call it a heartbreak, and wish the Celtics were more healthy um, when they were playing them that year because two
Mhm.
just all-time great teams. But it would have to be that 2010. You lose Perk in Game 6 with the
Yeah,
ACL, and then you play just tremendous defense on Kobe in Game 7. Really shut him down. And it was reminiscent of what you saw against the Pacers the other night. The Celtics just couldn't get a defensive rebound.
yeah,
And they would have these just great, great defensive possessions um, that would turn into back-breaking moments because they couldn't control the rebound. And it goes to show, your defensive performance doesn't end until you get the ball. And
yep,
the Celtics didn't have enough offensive punch in that game to overcome that. And Rasheed Wallace, gave it his all, but he was out of shape and really, wasn't any help on the glass. So missing Perk for that game and not being able to control a rebound I still look back at that Game 7 and they clearly outplayed the Lakers in that Game 7. They really outplayed them for the most part, except for that one very huge important element of a game.
yeah.
And to get beat by Ron Artest like you did in Game 7 too made it hurt even that much worse.
It did, and the fact that they blew a lead in that fourth quarter too.
Yeah,
The offense was stagnant. Um, they had such a hard time scoring against a team that I didn't think was great defensively, but they ended up being really great defensively. The Lakers team in that year. And
sure did.
one thing that always stood out to me in that series was I think Kobe got MVP because of name recognition, but the MVP of that series was Paul Gasol.
Oh, he was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't close.
And Odom was really, really good too.
Mhm.
Not on that level,
Yeah.
but he really gave them big moments. Yeah.
Well, Odom did. Even in the series we won in 6, I thought Odom, especially in the first half of the comeback, the year we won it in '08, Odom was all world when the Lakers built that big lead and then eventually blew it because they sucked defensively. But yeah, that for me too, that was the biggest heartbreaker. And it wasn't just a run on test 3. Like Derek Fisher sucked all series, and then in that fourth quarter he just started hitting shots, and it was such bullshit. Like the
Yeah.
Celtics game plan was to not even cover him and Ron Artest, and they both started hitting shots. It's like, and down the other end, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett can't hit anything, and it was like this is our night, you know.
You know what else is an underrated moment? You don't think it's heartbreak at the time, but the 2009 season, the
Oh,
809 season after the championship.
Celtics
They
were the
go,
best team in the NBA till KG got hurt.
yeah, going into LA, they were 25-2 or something. LA, rematch, win down there on Christmas Day. A week later, KG hurts his knee,
Yeah.
and it's just over.
Yes.
And kind of robbed of another championship matchup of the Lakers and the Celtics, and that would have been probably a great one. The Lakers kind of, easily won against the Magic in 5 or 6, but yeah, no, that's another one that stands out too.
All right, so Jim, mine's gonna probably be surprising to you, but what's one of your like I don't want to say like best moment, but like what's one of your most surprising memories of this rivalry? Like something that you didn't expect, and then you were like, "Wow, that was awesome."
No, I don't know. You go first. I need time to think about it.
Well, mine is so if you go back to like the 02-03 year, that Celtics team that lost in the Eastern Conference Finals, or
Yep.
it was either that year or the year before. Back then, it would be hard for some reason to get nationally broadcast games. I don't know if we didn't pay enough money on cable or whatever, but the Celtics went down to LA, and that was the night that Paul Pierce got the nickname "The Truth"
Hmm.
when he went off down there. I didn't see the game, and so the next morning, back then it was uh, like getting the newspaper. So I remember going over to my friend Chris Jakes' house and asking his father like how the game went because I figured the Celtics were going to get smoked. I remember him just like giving me the article and like reading it and being like, "Oh my God, Paul Pierce went off. They won. This is so cool!" Like because we all like were hungry for that guy, and I just remember like thinking like Paul Pierce is the man, and like being such a huge fan of his, and then seeing that newspaper article, like he went down there and dominated Shaq and Kobe. It was just like really cool. Um, that was just like really cool memory for me.
Yeah, I that was great. It was at the when he nicknamed him the Truth too. After
Yes, after
yeah,
the game, yeah.
yeah. I can't think of anything in particular, but this was kind of surprising to me when so Michael Cooper, the great Lakers defensive player from the 80s, was on a podcast. But I heard an old interview or something, I forget, but he's just talking about his matchups with Bird. And he just said, the guy was such a son of a bitch. He goes, I'm out there doing a good job. I'm fighting. And he goes down to the post and he starts yelling to DJ, "I'm wide open. No one's covering me. Give me the ball. I'm wide open. I'm wide open. No one's on me." And, you know,
That's so disrespectful.
it's so disrespectful. And Cooper actually always did a good job against him, but it would just show the confidence that, Bird had. And you think about that 87, you go back to that 87 championship series and Magic hits that running hook shot, to give the Lakers the lead after they got it blown out the game before in what was called the Boston Massacre. And then,
Mm-hmm.
They came all the way back in that game. Then Bird, they come out of the inbounds play and he gets that 3-pointer from the corner to win the game. And it's right on line. And even when you watch it now, it's like it's hard to believe it rims out. It's like he hits it so often, and when it's in the air, it looks perfect. And it's still hard to believe if it rims out. And if that goes in, it's probably a whole different series, right? The Celtics
Yeah.
probably win in 87. So, when you talk about surprising moments, that ball not going in the corner in 87, that's probably the most surprising moment I can think of.
Thanks, Jim. This is my last question. Then, if you have any, and it's okay if you don't, because I know I didn't let you prepare for this. Uh, so we do a great job on the pod, not communicating sometimes before the pod. So my last question to you is like, who is your most hated LA Laker of all time?
You go first again. I'll have to.
Yeah, this was tough for me. But I do think in the end, like over time, obviously I stopped hating him, and respected the greatness of Kobe Bryant. But going back to the heart of the rivalry for me, when these two teams were playing for championships, I hated Kobe. I would try to find every reason why he wasn't good. Like I would like dive through whatever I could find to talk shit about him. Obviously, in the end, he was great. There wasn't a lot of things about his game that you could pick at, but he didn't play great against the Celtics in either NBA Finals. I don't think. I don't think he played at the level that he did against other teams, especially in the Western Conference, of just like suffocating them. And doing the Kobe thing. So I always thought the Celtics played him really tough defensively, especially Ray Allen. But yeah, for me, going back, it was Kobe, and I definitely hated Sasha.
Yeah, yeah.
I hated Sasha. I think I called him Sasha Vagina Itch back in the day.
Yeah.
And I hated Paul Gasol too. I probably hated the whole team. One guy I didn't hate was Lamar Odom. I've always loved Lamar Odom
You
as a
are right,
player.
product. Yeah,
Yeah,
you that moment with Vucevic is on the bench after Allen crosses him up in that
it's great. It's
what
great.
is it, game 4 where the Celtics had that 20-something point comeback.
It was
And
awesome. Yeah.
he just like throwing the towel, crying like a baby. That was awesome. I always hated him. Hate's a strong word, so I'm having a little bit of a hard time. But one guy I can't stand, and because I think he's a quitter, is Anthony Davis. I thought he quit in New Orleans on his team with a huge contract to force his way out a year before his contract was even up to get to LA. And then, I watch him there in LA, and there's times he's just exceptional, and he looks like the best player in the league. And he's doing something like 32 points, 24 rebounds, and making it look easy. Then there's times you can throw Jaylen Brown on him, and he disappears. I just don't feel like he respects it enough where he gives it as much as he should. And I also can't stand guys that just quit on teams and try to destroy franchises that, are paying them, that they've committed to force a way out of a situation. I think there's other ways to do it. But I just he bothers me, like James Harden bothers me. I don't think there's a place for it. I know Kevin Durant bounces around from team to team, but I've never seen him quit on a team when he's been there. LeBron signs with other teams, but he's never quit. He's never ever quit. Anthony Davis, in my mind, is a quitter. And, I don't know. That's disrespectful to the game. It's disrespectful to your teammates. Yeah, Mike, I don't know what I have for questions. I think we covered it pretty well.
Yeah, definitely.
The Lakers say they have the same amount of championships, but how many did they win in Minnesota? I don't know how that carries over, but no one seems to call them out on it. And you're not a real elite franchise if you're raising a banner for the in-season tournament either. And then you lose like you do. So screw them. I hope the Celtics blow doors off them, but it's one of those games where it's weird.
I expect the Lakers to show up.
Way more to the Lakers than it does to the Celtics.
Yeah. I expect the Lakers to show up tonight. Hopefully Anthony Davis plays. We'll see. It's a pretty easy schedule here, Jim. Hopefully the Celtics do what they're supposed to do. And like I said, here in February, stretch out this lead some more and secure that 1 seed for the second season, the NBA playoffs. So everybody enjoy the game tonight. Enjoy the game against Memphis. We'll check in with you guys next week, and go Celtics.